Okay, we are live. Sorry for the delay. Thank you everybody who is joining us. Today we have special evening with Vrajalila, Mataji and Ekavira Prabhu, and we are going to talk about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. They're going to share their memories and their experience with the Guru Maharaj. Vrajalila and Ekavira Prabhu.
Haribo. So we also want to introduce you to Leela, who will be asking us some questions. Leela is newly initiated just a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, by His Holiness Hirdananda Maharaj, and we are really, really happy that she will be asking us the questions today.
Hare Krishna, I'm really glad to spend this time with you. To actually hear about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is really, really special. And to hear about him and his pastimes during Kartik, on the month of Kartik, I'm really, really excited. So thank you both for your time. So a few questions I'll let you share as you see fit, but I believe it was 2004, you spent the month of Kartik with your Gurudev Bhakti Tirtha Swami in Hawaii. What was the nature of his visit to Hawaii at that time? Why were you all there?
Wonderful. So we're just going to say a little prayer, and then Ekavira Prabhu will answer that question for both of us.
Thank you.
Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaitnamni Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmani Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Tinamane Namo Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Vahani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pastyatyadesh
Jai
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Haribo. So yes, it was Kartik 2004. We were traveling to Hawaii because one of Bhakti Tirtha Swami's friends allowed him to stay in Hawaii while Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was undergoing naturopathic treatment. We chose Hawaii because of its natural environment, its beauty. We wanted a place where Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj could actually have some seclusion, fresh air, temperate weather, so many different things, and Hawaii was most suitable. And then the facility, of course, came available. And so that's why we chose Hawaii.
Okay, I guess that, our Guru Maharaj, he wanted to be in seclusion during that period. It was Kartik, it was beginning the month of Kartik. And so he wanted to spend that time of Kartik just very quiet. And so he requested just myself and Ekavira Prabhu to be with him. It was just the three of us. And he, as Ekavira said, he wanted quiet time. However, it wasn't all that quiet. It turned out not to be so quiet. Yes. We did quite a few different things, and that's why we're kind of eager now to start sharing some of those activities that happened during that time. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I didn't know that it started off as just the three of you, and I'm curious to know what it did turn into. So if you could share with us some of those pastimes, some of those memories, possibly some of the lessons that you learned from spending that time with him, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, actually, it did start out with the three of us. However, it was a lot of responsibility that I had in particular. in administering the medicines, and then also caring to his personal needs and whatever we had to do in that environment. So we asked Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj if we could solicit some help, get some assistance from the devotees. And he said, no, not at this time. He said, can't you do it? And I said, well, we're trying, but at the same time, it would help if we had some assistance. But he said, no, at this point in time, just the three of us will do this service. You want to continue?
And we could understand as the time went on why he wanted a quiet space. The house that we were staying in was the home it was just bought actually by one of his godbrothers, Dasarat Prabhu, who offered the home for him to stay. It was quite a big house. However, it needed a lot of renovations, and we weren't sure what we were kind of going into when we decided to go to Hawaii. Just that he knew that he really wanted to be more internal, and he knew that he wanted Ekavira to be able to take care of him without much interruption, because at that time our Guru Maharaj had a wound on his foot that was really kind of huge, and Ekavira had to administer different kinds of treatments to it every day. And so during those times when he was administering those treatments, our Guru Maharaj also requested Ekavira, to read during some of the times when he wasn't when he was administering the treatment, but however during the periods when he was like putting on bandage or taking off bandage or just waiting, he would let him read. So I want Ekavira to share, because we've never shared what the treatment was that he was having at that time, why he wanted seclusion, because the treatment was quite intense.
Yeah, it was. It required a few hours in the morning and evening of just dedicated time to the treatment, because he was taking some oral medicines, but then he was taking IVs. He had this drip that took an hour and a half to administer, and then I was administrating ozone directly into his vein. And all of these different treatments, it had an effect on his body. And he said, this is really intense, especially the ozone. And then he was taking steam. It was like a steam bath. And that's actually when I would read to him. We would read, at that point in time, we were reading from Shivaram Swami's book, Narparye Hum. And that had just been released, and one devotee sent it to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And so each day I would read that from that book. And it was really, really sweet, really sweet. And as we were going through the many, many weeks, 4 weeks of the treatment and reading from the book, I remember when we concluded that book, he said, wow, Shivaram Swami is very deep. He said, I've never really had much of his association, but now I've had the pleasure to actually associate with him by hearing from the book.
Yeah, actually, we thought that one of the offerings we would like to make tonight is to share our Guru Maharaj's appreciation for so many different devotees that did kind of make their presence known in one way or another during that time. He actually had such deep love. This is Kartik, the month of love, and I believe that's something that we got very present to. This is why Kartik is so special for us, because in that month, we really experienced our Guru Maharaj's love for his God family and his love just in general, you know, for wanting to connect with people. And so this was Hawaii, even though he, like I said, he was supposed to be in seclusion, it turned out not to be so much. I mean, it was secluded in many ways because there was nobody around. However, some devotees did end up coming. He did actually agree for a few devotees to come and visit for one day or so. And we'll share a little bit about that. And this is also the time we want to appreciate some of the devotees that we kind of maybe have not appreciated. So I was the designated cook for my Gurudev and also the designated secretary, so to speak. So every evening after all the treatments were done and our Guru Maharaj was getting ready to take rest, I would go and I would send out messages about what the day was like for him. And so in the course of a day, we would wake up in the morning, of course, and do our japa, and we had his deities with us, Radha Shamachandar. And so every morning we would chant the Dhammadarastakam prayers. And of course, you know, just do that together. That was our morning sadhana. And then I would go and I would try to start making some things for him. He at that time was not eating so much, and he was eating a lot of raw foods, nothing cooked so much. And yeah, so I want to really appreciate during this time, because Kartik is such a time for sending love and receiving love. I want to appreciate the love that we receive, especially me, from Bhakti Lata. She's a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami. She was living in Hawaii. Her parents, Brihan and Mahesh Prabhus, and they were a few of the people that my Guru Maharaj kind of okayed for them to come and see him. He knew Brihan and Mahesh from New Vrindavan. So he also knew Bhakti Lata. Of course, at that time, when he knew her, she was really young. But in any case, Bhakti Lata herself, she's quite an austere young woman. And she was also doing raw during that period of time in her life. And so she would come over to the house and she would teach me how to do many different varieties of raw preparations, beautiful and also really tasty. And so then my Guru Maharaj would, you know, he would eat a little bit, he would eat more. And she really was very dedicated to coming and just being in the kitchen with me many, many, many days, just helping me to understand how to serve my Guru Maharaj. So this is a little bit of a personal story, because I would cook for him and, well, not cook really, but make these different raw preparations. And we would, you know, she would show me. She was really good with a lot of avocado dishes, lots of wonderful things that she shared with me. And I would then bring the plate to him. And it was so funny because, you know, my Guru Maharaj, he always ate like once in a day. However, he had really good cooks and they would prepare really nice meals for him that one time that he would eat. And so now this was such a big transition for him because it was totally different. You know, the meals were totally different. So I knew that even though he was really trying to do that, he didn't like it so much. And even though we were trying our best, we had the best person, Bhakti Lata, to help me to do that. Still, sometimes I would take the plate to him and he would just look at it. He would just look at it. And I remember one time he, I have a pen in my hand. So it was like a fork or a spoon or something. And he just took his fork or spoon and just kind of started moving things around like that, you know, on the plate, and just kind of looking at it like, okay, I'm going to do this. But, you know, it wasn't what he would have preferred. So, but however, you know, he was so generous in how he appreciated what we were offering him. He was really generous in eating what we offered him, and yeah, that was a time I remember that he was really austere, because eating raw foods for a whole month was it's if you're not used to that, and if you don't really like that, it was quite austere. So yeah,
I want to add something here. We're going to digress a little. When we were coming to Hawaii, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was very frugal. He didn't like to spend, Krishna's Lakshmi. He expressed that devotees are making these donations, so we have to be very careful how we use these donations. So devotees would recommend and said, fly first class. He said, I'm not flying first class. Why would I fly first class? And then we looked for tickets, and on a particular flight, they only had 2 seats. And in order to get the 3rd seat, I think it was almost twice or 3 times the amount. And he said, just get the 2 seats on this flight, and then Vrajalila will fly on the next flight after us. And Vrajalila said, huh? What? And Vrajalila really doesn't like flying alone. So that was the arrangement. And we flew into Hawaii, and then 6 hours later, Vrajalila, actually the next day, Vrajalila came. And so I had to cook for him that day. And so here we are. We arrived in Hawaii. We were picked up at the airport by a devotee, Muralidhar, I believe his name was. He was such a special devotee. He was helping us all the time. He brought us to the house, and when we got there, we saw the house. We were thinking that it was some palatial place, but much to our surprise, it was a construction site. And then the vehicle that we had to transport Maharaj around was a 1984 Nissan pickup, which was a very small pickup truck with a 5-speed transmission. And so I was taking him around in this truck. And so we had to go buy boga. And I was buying boga on the side of the road. And then we came back to the house, and I started cooking. And I'm not a cook, but, he had to eat. So I made some preparation. It was a stir fry preparation. And then I served it to him. And this is in the mood of what Vrajalila was saying. He was so encouraging at that point in time. He honored it. He said, and then he kept honoring it. He said, wow, you're a better cook than Vrajalila. I never told her that. We never talked about this. I never told anyone this. He said, you're a better cook than Vrajalila. Maybe you all should switch services. You cook and she administer the medicines. I said, come on, okay, Guru Maharaj, I really appreciate the encouragement. He said, no, I'm serious. But anyway, he was really encouraging me at that point in time, because his cook and his personal secretary, Vrajalila, was not there at that point in time.
Well, just to keep on the truck story, so many times we were in that truck, and my goodness, it was so uncomfortable. At that point, I had already served my Guru Maharaj, I don't know how many years, I guess, since 1979, and he got ill in 2004. So I had been serving him all those years. But however, believe it or not, I had never, ever sat next to him before, ever, just never had it happened. However, in this truck, somehow or other, for us to go anywhere, and we had to take him all the time to either to the hospital or, to some other place, because he insisted on doing outreach, even though, we knew like, okay, this is going to be difficult. And we were going around in this truck. And so I remember we drove up once to a devotee's place that he was going to do some program or something. So Ekavira Prabhu is driving the truck, our Guru Maharaj is sitting in the middle with his foot, the foot that is.
No, he's sitting on the other side. You're in the middle.
Oh yeah, I was in the middle. Sorry, I'm in the middle, and he's on the other side with his foot
On the dash.
on the dashboard, and I'm like squeezed in, like ooh, you know, and I'm like, oh Krishna, how long will this go on? So after a few days, and I realized, okay, this is how this is going to be. Every time we go out, I'm going to be squeezed in here like this. And my Guru Maharaj, he's making this huge sacrifice, you know, for me to come, because I mean, I could have not, you know, maybe I could have stayed back or something, but it was just three of us in this house. So I would always go along.
And I mean, it was really tight.
It was,
a
close.
Small truck with a 5-speed, and every time I tried to shift gears, I'd say, okay, Vrajalila, move your leg a little bit to the right, and then I'd shift into the gears. Okay, breathe. Okay, hold your breath, and then I'd shift into another gear.
So I remember I asked him one day, I said, Guru Maharaj, you know, we're getting donation to help with your health care. Can we just buy a car, you know, so that we can, like a used car or something? And he said, no. He said, you know, this is Krishna's Lakshmi. And, you know, so then I think a devotee donated. Because when we drove up, this devotee and his wife name was Radharani, I always remember that. They both were like staring at us like, Maharaj is in the truck, you know? And we're like, what can we say? That he's okay with this, you know, he's fine, you know? Because, you know, like Guru Maharaj, I mean, he's always trained me not to be like on the bodily platform, and he's never dealt with me like a woman in the sense of woman. You know, I mean, I of course I knew I was in a female body, but he never treated me like that. And so having this cancer and having to deal with that, he just really dealt with Ekavira Prabhu and myself like we were just like we're servants. We're all servants. He was serving us. We were serving him. There was no gender thing that was there, and that's however many years ago. And as far as I remember, since I met him in 1979, it was always like that. He was always just very encouraging, very kind, very inspiring, always encouraged me that I could do so many things for Srila Prabhupada. I could do so many things for Srila Prabhupada's mission. That was his mood. So when he left me at the airport, him and Ekavira, they, you know, as Ekavira was sharing, they went on the flight and just left me. It was kind of like, yeah, that's just how he did stuff, you know. It was like, oh yeah, Krishna's gonna take care of you. You're gonna be fine. And yeah, it was just like, okay, I had to get on the plane myself the next day. And yes, that was always his mood was always to just do the needful, do what's important. And he was, he wasn't petty. He wasn't petty at all. He was always just thinking, what is best, what's practical.
And also, when we were going to the preaching programs, I remember one program, we drove up and the devotees were having a kirtan, you know, waiting for Maharaj, you know, greeting him. And then you could see the faces of the devotees as we drove up in the truck, and Maharaj's foot is on the dashboard and Vrajalila's in the middle. We're crunched in this little Nissan truck. They were chanting, they were smiling, and then they looked, and the smile changed to a look of bewilderment. Like, what in the world is going on here? And they just didn't know what was happening. And so they said, how could you have Maharaj riding around like this? No, you need a car. We're going to get some money together and donate so that you can buy a car, because this is ridiculous. By that time, it was almost the end of Kartik. Actually, it was Prabhupada's disappearance.
Yeah.
That day.
Yeah. We're going to tell one more pastime, and then we have a slew of pastimes. There's so many. When we think of this month for us, you know, this month transport us back to some of that intimate time that we had with our Guru Maharaj. It was a very special and very beautiful time. really helped us to understand the meaning of Kartik. So another pastime that I remember that during Kartik months, I always think about this, is after he finished, his morning meal, which usually was like a brunch, and he would go to write. He would go. He would walk with his cane. There was some steps in this house. He walk with his cane down to the beach, because we were right in front of a beach, and Ekavira had a chair for him there, and he would write. And that's where he wrote that book, Beggar 4. And then when he would finish his writing, he would come back up, and I believe Ekavira would do a treatment, and then he would want to watch His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Abhay Charan videos. I think he watched the whole set of videos during that time. He was like absorbed and immersed in the videos. And I remember when the videos ended, he just was like, why did they have to end? He didn't want them to end. He would just like, okay, put the first one back on again. He loved those. He loved like hearing about Srila Prabhupada and being able to see the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So when I think of that how much absorption he had in seeing Srila Prabhupada's videos, I always appreciate His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj for that service that he did for Srila Prabhupada, because I know that those tapes have helped many, 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 many devotees. However, I don't know how many devotees know how much those tapes helped Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj during that period of time, because it was a difficult period. It was hard for him. That was the period where he was making a transition. Yes, it was a time of seclusion for the cancer. However, it was more of a time of seclusion for him to make the transition from thinking that he would still maybe survive the cancer to accepting that, no, he wasn't. He wasn't going to survive.
He was definitely torn at that point.
Yeah.
He was, on one hand, expecting the Krishna miracle, as he would say, expecting the cancer to be completely cleared from his body. At the same time, wanting and willing to accept what Krishna was actually providing. But at the same time, remember, he was a very vibrant, active preacher. And that was his life, preaching. Mm-hmm. So his main meditation was to go through this treatment, not just to get his body into better shape and to rid itself from the cancer, but so that he can get back out and preach.
Yeah.
And so it was really challenging. And also at that point in time, he was traveling throughout the world. He had just done like a 33 country tour. And he saw how much he was being used to make an impact on devotees' lives. And so he wanted to continue to serve Srila Prabhupada and encourage devotees in our movement to go deeper in a Krishna consciousness. And what he used to say is he was in a lot of anxiety because he saw that devotees weren't happy in Krishna consciousness. And he wanted to be used in that way to help devotees to become happy in Krishna consciousness. So he was anxious to get back out again. And at the same time, willing to accept whatever Krishna was giving, but it was difficult.
So maybe we'll ask Lucy to ask one more question, and we're gonna close with this part. Maybe one more question, and next we will talk another time when we do this again. We'll talk about some of the phone calls. My Guru Maharaj looked forward to the phone calls from his God family, and many of the God families did call him. And I also want to share some of what we were experiencing and some of the difficulties we experienced and how Srila Rangat Maharaj, was able to assist us with some of the challenges that we were facing. It was hard for us because he was our guru. At the same time, he was in a condition that, he was dependent on us. So, and he was also making a transition. And so we kind of ended up being his confidants. He shared many, many personal things with us. So we understood a lot about things that that were important to him over the years, and how he was trying to reconcile, and how he was trying to understand so many of those things during that period. Yeah, maybe you want to ask us a question.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredible. It feels like it's only been a minute just hearing all of that. And I just have one question, but I wanted to mention that, in that book that you spoke about, Die Before Dying, he spoke about how we should take the opportunity to express love and gratitude to people while we can. And I feel like you both came with that mood of expressing love and gratitude to the people who helped you, the devotees who were there. And it seems like it's just in line with what he's saying, right? Don't wait for something to happen for us to share those things. And I really appreciated this lesson. I mean, I can't even imagine what you experienced with him as far as the learning that he brought to you, what Ekavira Prabhu, what you said about the miracle, Krishna, waiting for Krishna's miracle, and at the same time accepting what Krishna was going to bring. That's an incredible way to live, and I really appreciated that sharing. I guess my question is that this was a difficult time for all of you, and it seems like it was also full of love and the celebration that he talked about. Did he ever express what the process was for him of dealing with those difficulties? Because what you were saying about even being in that truck, it sounds like he didn't even complain about it. And so if there's anything that you can share about how he learned to be that way, or what process he followed internally, and if he ever shared about how to deal with difficulties as they come.
Yeah, that's a deep question, Leela. Yeah, and he shared many things. Mostly, though, the way that he was able to kind of just accept his situation, when he did accept, was through him making himself available to be present for others, even when it was really, really difficult. It was difficult because there were times when, the cancer would, he would be in some pain. His foot would be in some pain. And it was an open wound. And it wasn't nice to look at. And the things that the things he was taking, even though they were natural, they weren't nice. They weren't so nice, It's like sometimes you can get some Ayurvedic medicines that don't taste so nice. He depended a lot on his God family, a lot. He really wanted the love of his God family. That was so important to him. And the ones that were able to reciprocate with him, I believe, gave him strength to accept whatever Srila Prabhupada wanted of him. He had that understanding. However, like Ekavira Prabhu said, he really had such a strong desire to go back out into the field. That was his life. He just wanted to be in the field. And he had this strong desire to go back to Russia. I share this pastime all the time. He really wanted to go back to Russia. Those devotees in Russia had captured his heart somehow. And he wanted also to go back to Africa. He just wanted to go back and, you know, kind of have closure, I would call it, in certain places. And he, like Ekavira said, he thought he might be able to do that. But as the days went on, we could tell that he was getting weaker physically, and that we could tell. And there's a real story about this in terms of how we had to rush him back to America to get his foot amputated, which we'll share at another time. But in any case, in answer to your question, yeah, I believe it was the love that he received from some of his God family that helped him to move through some of the things that he might have been questioning at the time.
He, as Vrajalila was expressing, you know, he really appreciated, especially his God family, but he appreciated everyone. He always acted in the mood of how he used to express, we want to become love in action. Mm. He always acted in that way. At the same time, during the time that he was departing from the planet, and especially in Hawaii, he displayed being love in action on another level. And just when I thought that, you know, he couldn't do any more, be more compassionate, more loving, he'd become more loving and more compassionate. Mm-hmm. And it continued. And I was like, oh man, this is like unending. It was unending. And so many people, whenever they would come around him, they would just, you know, be affected on a heart level, very deep. I mean, he would meet people in a waiting room in a hospital, and they would just be, you know, blown away and enamored. Nurses, I remember nurses, one lady, she said, she was just in tears when he left the hospital. She said, I just can't believe that God would take someone away that's so wonderful like that. We need more people like him on the planet. And she was just weeping. And so he was so much in that mood of being love and action. And so his God family gave him strength. But also during that period of time, he was an example of for us and how to actually really look at ourselves and look, you know, how we were contributing to, you know, Srila Prabhupada, to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and to each other. He was looking at that, and he was an example of that. And of course, that, I mean, we talked about, you know, him appreciating his God family, but also he opened himself up to feedback. You know, again, this was something he always did. There was a particular time when he was really, you know, contemplating this. He was, as we said earlier, he was torn by the desire to get back out in the field and preach, but at the same time, wanting to accept what Krishna was giving. And it was so difficult. And Vrajalila and him got into it at one point in time.
I don't think we want to talk about
but
that.
Anyway, they got into it. They did. And it is really relevant because he actually opened himself up to feedback. And after, you know, they had their dialogue, then he went outside and he just sat and he wrote for about 3 hours. You know, one of the prayers of die before dying. And he continued to open himself up to feedback. He constantly took personal inventory. That was something that he always expressed, take personal inventory. And at that point in time, it was no exception. He continued to do that. And he always used to express, and we talked about him being love in action. He expressed that whenever you're having a challenging time, make yourself available to serve someone else. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see that your particular challenge that you have is actually not so much of a challenge at all. And so even though he expressed that he wanted to be secluded, he wanted to be more in the mood of bhajan, writing and chanting, every day he was trying to find some way that he could reach out and preach to someone.
And he got a lot of invitations, actually. We were groups. He had no distinction at that time. He was reaching out to anyone that would invite him. He would go and he would just share about Prabhupada. I remember one time we went to a preaching program with all these disciples and guru of Sridhar Maharaj, I believe, or was it Sridhar Puri, or I don't know, because in Hawaii, there's all these different groups, so many different groups. And so when they started learning that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was there, they started, wanting to have him come and speak.
Yeah, Puri Maharaj.
I think it was Puri Maharaj. And so we went to this program of Puri Maharaj. Remember, it's Kartik. And so it's like a big celebration. I can't remember if it was Govardhan Puja or whatever, some big celebration was going on. And so many disciples in Hawaii, the weather's good and people are a lot of devotees, lots of different devotees. And how we watched our Guru Maharaj, he just like a strong warrior of Srila Prabhupada. He just sat on that Vyasasana and just spoke like he wasn't sick at all. And then, he just spoke in such a way that he really tried to unify devotees. He was just like the person that was like kind of bringing the tapestry together with everyone. He was really into doing that. People were listening to him because, he was sick, he was dying. So the tendency to listen to a dying person is people have much more respect when somebody is leaving, which is interesting, than when they're here on the planet. So all these devotees, Narayan Maharaj, Puri Maharaj, Sridhar Maharaj, they were all like trying to, coming together. And so we'll talk a little bit about that another time. I don't want to go beyond our time because, there's a lot to share. However, we want to keep it just for a certain period of time. And when Ekavira said me and my Guru Maharaj got into it, one thing I want to share is my Guru Maharaj always encouraged me to be self-expressed. He always encouraged me to express myself, speak about something if I have some thought about it, and it was something that was concerning for me. He never he was never he chastised me also. He would chastise me if I overstepped my boundary in my speaking. But however, he encouraged me to speak. And I knew like when I overstepped whatever I said or whatever, I knew because he would let me know. It's like Radhanath Maharaj has that quality also, like I'm outspoken kind of. But Radhanath Swami can just give you an eye, just the eye. There's just a look in the eye and okay, just be quiet now. That's it. It's all right now. So I had that relationship with my Gurudev. He gave me full permission to speak out and to be expressive. At the same time, he was also very stern. And I think I got chastised many, many times, but I learned so much I think the thing I missed the most from my Gurudev is his chastisements, to be honest with you, because those are what I learned from. I learned from those chastisements. Yeah, they're the most valuable part of my life in Krishna consciousness, was learning from my Guru Maharaj, sharing with me things to do differently and how I could do it differently. Okay, devotees, we're going to close. Any last thing you want to say, Ekavira?
we look forward to continuing if that is a desire to do so. So I'm grateful that we can participate in speaking about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj during this month.
And we thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We thank you, Kishore Rani, for
Rani.
organizing and coordinating this Facebook Live. And we're so happy to do this. We want to thank the devotees that we perhaps have not thanked over the last 14 years. And so we want to continue doing this so we can thank them, because they played a tremendous important part of Guru Maharaj's Leela, especially the part in Hawaii. And for that, we are eternally grateful to all of them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Hari Hari.